So our first session is going to be dealing with the value of standard users, participation in standardization, or as we call it, the power of user voice in shaping the global standards. We are honored, as I said before, to have with us the leaders of ISO, IC, and SEN and SENELEC. Please, you can join me here. Pick up. Yeah. Whatever.
That has finished.
Thank you again for coming here. Just to let you all know that last week, actually, I came home on Sunday. We all met in Cartagena, Colombia. So those guys are very, very busy traveling around the world. And I really personally want to thank you for coming here. And I know standard users are an important part of, you all talk about it, the importance of standard users as part of standardization. So we really appreciate your coming here. So standards are not created in a vacuum. They all have a real impact on people, business, and progress. Throughout the session, we will explore the critical question, how can we empower standard users to actively participate in shaping and implementing international standards? With the expertise of our esteemed panel, I'm confident that we'll gain valuable insights and explore effective strategies to ensure the user's voice not only are heard, but actively take part and shape the future of standardization. Without further ado, let's have a warm applause to our speakers. Let's begin talking to each of you on the current challenges of your organization. Let's put aside the standard users right now, but let's talk about the current challenges. What are the hottest issues that you're dealing with, and what are your greatest challenges? So let me begin with you.
First of all, happy anniversary, happy birthday.
Thank you.
It's really an honor to be here. We are celebrating with you and also celebrating the role of standard users in the standardization community. Very, very important. Well, talking about challenges, I think we do have many related, first of all, with the global context. We live out of the business of consensus building, out of the business of collaboration, and what we can see worldwide is increasing fragmentation, divisions, and geopolitical challenges. And that is, of course, something complex for an organization like us. That's number one. Number two, well, Olivier was referring to this one. We also see increasing challenges related to regulatory pressure and our collaboration with policymakers. The desk is, as you mentioned, is true. It's an indispensable component of our value proposition that we want to collaborate with policymakers and regulators. But the closer we are in this relationship, the higher the pressure to make some of our deliverables available, which of course is a challenge in the context of our business model, which we are reviewing. I will refer to that later on. The third one could be related to digital transformation. Because if we want to remain relevant, we cannot continue doing things in exactly the same manner as we have done in the last decades or even years, because the evolution is so quick. So we are very actively working in our digital transformation, including projects such as online standard development, smart artificial intelligence to benefit on the increasing efficiency within the system and so on. So just to name some of the challenges we're facing to warm up, to start the conversation.
Thank you very much. Elena?
Yes. So good morning, everybody, and happy anniversary. I mean, 50 is a very, very nice age these days. So I think that you need to enjoy also the moment. It is a pleasure to be here today. Thank you to Ifan. Thank you also to AFNOR, which is the SEN and SENELEC member for hosting this event. And of course, in the same way that we need standards makers, what would be of us if we wouldn't have standards users? So thank you also for being there and for giving us feedback about the way that our standards can improve and how we can actually do things better. I think that you referred to challenges. I think that we also need to address opportunities because I am optimistic by default. So it's good that we look at the continuous changing environment as some stimulus for us to become better and to improve in what we do. As said, I'm going to refer to 3 challenges, opportunities that we have in the European standardization system. And I will start. So we are now mid-term for the SEN-SENELEC strategy 2030. There are 5 goals. I'm going to refer to 3 of them. And I will start by the 3rd one, if I may say, which is inclusiveness and the need for SEN and SENELEC for the European system. And I think that these are shared challenges and opportunities with our international counterparts. The fact that we need to become and to keep on being attractive for new stakeholders, for new areas of activities, getting engaged with young professionals, getting engaged with new potential standards makers and standards users. And I think this is also the case for you, increasing the inclusiveness in our system. So addressing gender, addressing young professionals, getting closer to research and academia. I think Olivier mentioned the shortening of the life cycle of products and services. We really need to make sure that we integrate better research, innovation, and standardization. So this is one of the objectives of our strategy 2030, and at the same time, we see that as an opportunity for us to become closer to the society and to give a better response to societal and economic needs. The second is the digital transformation. So produce standards that, and again, I think that Sergio has mentioned that, so you will see that we coincide in many of these challenges and opportunities. So we need to modernize our system. And we are making huge efforts to engage with the digital economy that is already here and that doesn't distinguish, in this case, between European, non-European, or international. We need to make significant efforts in engaging with digital tools that can deliver what the standards users need without jeopardizing the principles that are very important to define the European and the international standardization system. So consensus, it's harder and harder to reach because many of the examples that Sergio has been mentioning, but also because we are in this cross-sectoral and convergence of technologies where what we have to do is to get together experts from what we used to call traditional sectors with the new areas of economy that are really starting to shine in the economy. So addressing the digital transformation, modernizing our processes, make sure that we timely deliver and that we deliver according to the user needs. I always speak about timely delivery because there is a kind of obsession of you need to go fast. But actually, the fact of delivering a standard on time is an art also. And there, users have got a very important role to play in indicating when is the right time to get the standard in the market. So digital transformation and the fact that we are able to modernize our system. And my third first is the recognition of the European standardization system by European policymakers and legislators. This is something that has been very strongly stated in the Sen and Senelec Strategy 2030. It couldn't be otherwise because actually we are a regional standard organization. We have got, of course, a very important goal that is to give primacy to international standards, and of course you are an international association of standard users. It is very important for us to keep a very robust public-private partnership and to make sure that there is a good understanding of what are the roles and responsibilities of the different actors in the system. And in this sense, just maybe to give the example of a very nice initiative that is happening now in Europe, which is the High-Level Forum on European Standardization, that what tries to do is precisely to bring together the bottom-up and the top-down approach so that we can have a good exchange and a good understanding of what are the market needs and what are the policy initiatives, and identify those strategic priorities that need to be supported by European standardization. So beyond that, of course, it is extremely important that there is a good understanding of the business model, of the sustainability of the system. But as I said, this can be also an opportunity for the European standardization system and maybe for the international one to go ahead with innovative projects that can find a good way to sustain the system and deliver what we need to deliver as standard makers.
Thank you very much, Philip.
Thank you, Vered, and good day everyone here in Paris and also online. It's great to be with you. I think it's the first time that I'm in this forum with Ifan. I think I had a few agenda items in the previous years. I would like, of course, to extend my best wishes for the 50th anniversary. I learned on the way here to the venue that it's Paris Fashion Week this week. So there's quite a bit of competition going on, but looking at the queue downstairs for people to come into this event here, I think Ifan is winning clearly. And I think in a sense, it's of course also one important anniversary in a series of several. Vered, congratulations to you on your chairmanship, leadership, presidency of Ifan. Now we had the opportunity in 2023 to celebrate the centenary of the Standards Institution of Israel. In Israel, it was a fantastic event. It was happening under circumstances that unfortunately today seem very far away. And of course, we all cross the fingers that that will improve again. At the same time, looking at the IEC, founded in 1906 by Lord Kelvin. Lord Kelvin would be celebrating his bicentennial anniversary this year, something of course we also want to pay tribute to at our general meeting in Edinburgh in October. And so I think under that premise, if we speak about the challenges, I also maybe would like to start with the opportunities that Elena was emphasizing as well, because yes, of course we are challenged day by day with many things, strategic, operational, legal, etc. But fundamentally, if I think in terms of IEC, where we're coming from, 1906, creating an organization that can make the use of electrotechnology, electricity safe, interoperable, and also consistent, I think we've come a long way from then. And if we took a look at our current strategy, where we have three pillars, the first is to enable a digital, connected and all-electric society. I think we're very much building there on our core DNA since 1906. And I think we are more relevant than ever in that context. I mean, technology is transforming our lives fundamentally. We are, of course, today not just looking at pure electrical constellations where we are producing standards and conformity assessment, but also very much at electronics, at IT more and more. We're having some very exciting new projects and also new bodies, technical bodies, for AI, for quantum technologies, our latest joint technical committee together with ISO that we are launching. And so I think we can really put the core expertise, the core DNA of IC to a good use of society overall in a world that's very technology driven. At the same time, of course, sustainability is key in what we do. That's our second strategic pillar. And so we are trying to make dedicated efforts in focusing our work in standardization and in conformity assessment to that, making sure that the standards actually take into account things like designs of products that are ecologically viable, that can be recycled, for instance, also offering new services in terms of conformity assessment. Of course, that's a very important aspect of our existence, having 4 conformity assessment systems. We are now offering new services in the sustainability space as well. If I think, for instance, about something like carbon footprint verification, and at the same time, we also, I think, have to step up at the advocacy level. Sergio mentioned the context within which we are globally, with the interaction with decision makers, policy makers, regulators that is increasing. For the first time this year, we will have a common standards pavilion, as we call it, with ISO and other standards organizations at the COP29, which is taking place in Baku in November. And that's certainly also going to be, I think, an attempt at stepping up our visibility and our channels to discuss and interact with different stakeholders. So if anybody from Ifan, members of your organization will be there as well, please make use of that pavilion. It's there to be used, to be filled, and to engage with, also it's very much with non-standards representatives around the world, to make them better understand how our work, all of our 3 organizations here, contributes to sustainability. And then maybe the last but certainly not least point in terms of strategic priorities is very much to be inclusive, to be leading on trust and diversity. And I think that's very much, we will speak about that a little bit later, I believe, of course, where Ifan comes in as well, particularly because we really want to make sure we're capturing all the different facets of stakeholders that will have an influence and, I would say, a betterment of what we're actually doing day by day. So overall, I think it's an optimistic agenda, an optimistic strategy. When you then drill down in how you do it, how you implement it, what resources you need, what you have to pay, what the members have to pay, it's becoming much more difficult. And then it becomes a real challenge. But I think that's what we're here to do. And that's what makes our work also so exciting. And of course, I cannot be sitting here today next to the Director General of Sensenelec without mentioning legal challenges, because we all know we have important judicial decisions behind or before us, also on other continents, and that goes to the core of our core know-how, our core copyrights, which are embodying what you and the different standards contributors are producing every day. And I think it's very important that we find a model, and that will be probably also discussion around business model, that allows sustainability, financially speaking, for our organizations, because there is no free lunch. So if the standardization process cannot be financed, there won't be any standardization process anymore, at least not at the global scale with non-profit organizations as we are. So this is maybe in a nutshell where we are today. I think lots of opportunities, lots of challenges, but very much an exciting also ongoing journey together with our communities in our organizations, but also with organizations such as Ifan and the stakeholders that you represent.
Thank you very much, Philip. I must say, from a personal viewpoint, Mr. Farah may attest to that. Many years ago, when I started with standardization, to see the 3 of you sitting together and doing all those joint projects, am I right? It was impossible. It was very, so I think really
official launch them before, because it's a product of the high-level forum, so we have to wait for them to upload it on the relevant page of the Europa website, and then we can have the links. I told her yesterday to the fonctionnaire, to Gabriela, to speed it up because of the newsletter, And she said that at the latest in a couple of days we should. Okay. But I think that we have the final documents. They are approved. So if you can create already a link to the website that is.
There you go.
So really, it's really, I'm excited to hear about all the cooperation. I know that you're doing a lot of cooperation, so it's fantastic. So let's just drill down a little bit and see how does the organization see the benefit of users' participation in standardization? How crucial do you believe standard users are in the process? How can users contribute to add value to the standard development? And how can we contribute to improve the relevance? What are the economic and market benefits of user participation? And if there is any area that you see our participation bringing essential benefits to your organization. A lot of questions, but on the same subject. Please.
Thank you. It's true. A lot of questions. I try to
we try to squeeze everything in a very short time. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think the participation of standard users is essential for us to be true in one of our key principles. With our standardization activities, we want to create solutions to real challenges, to real problems. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that we don't want to create solutions looking for a problem. We first understand what kind of problem we have, and then we create our standards, our solutions. And I think standard users can be essential for us to identify the real problem. That's number one. Number two, standard users are anchored at the very heart of the ISO strategy, which, as I have mentioned in the past, is a very human-centric one. In our vision as an organization, we don't talk about technical requirements or specification, we talk about people. What we want to achieve is to make people's lives easier, safer, and better. And for that, we have three concrete strategic goals, each of them closely linked to standard users. The first one is standard used everywhere, because we can have beautiful, perfectly technically shaped standards, but if they are not used, they are simply useless. So it's very important what we can do together. Number one, to demonstrate the value of standards. What kind of success story we can build together to demonstrate to everyone that value. And the second one is related to innovation to meet users' needs. And that is very much related to SMART, because our standards are great, but somehow difficult to navigate, right? So the easier we make it for you, for our users, to apply, to implement those standards, the better for everyone. So that's under strategic goal number one. Number two is meeting global needs. And that brings me to something that was mentioned by my friend Olivier, our open consultation program. Why is this? We've been working successfully for 75 years in a fully bottom-up approach. And there is nothing to apologize about. We are very proud of that. I mean, our members at the national level, they know better what kind of challenges they need to address. But at the same time, we cannot miss opportunities related to global trends. How do we capture those global trends and inject them into our standardization activities? And we have our Foresight project and also our open consultation, where we want to incorporate this outside-in perspective. So that's very important for us to meet global needs. And the third strategic goal is about all voices being heard. And once again, I think you can play a really important role on that. How do we ensure diversity? How do we ensure inclusivity, which are not only nice things to have, they are essential for the value proposition of our organization. As I like to say, I mean, we could have a new standard in 3 months, bringing, top 5 experts on the world in certain matter, and but that's not the way we work. That's not what we believe in. It's not only about the content of the standard, it's also about the process we follow and how we ensure an appropriate level of inclusivity and diversity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Elena?
Yes, thank you. I think I will start by emphasizing the structure of CEN and CENELEC based on the national delegation principle. Here, I we work very much to support the national members, and as Sergio has said, the national members, they know better what are the standard needs, the standard users needs, and to be able to reply to those needs and to inject those needs in the European standardization process. So we have put some efforts within the strategy also 2030 in observing and supporting the members in assessing user needs, comparing also how members make those assessments. But I mean, united in diversity, you know, this was the theme of the European Parliament, and this is a very important aspect that we need to take into account while considering user needs in the standard development process. So we are very much based on the national delegation principle. We address those needs, or our members address those needs, because it is the direct contact and the best way to incorporate those user needs. The user needs input in the standard development process at national, European, and international level is a must. As I said at the beginning, what would be of us if there would be no users of standards? So what would be the purpose of standards development? So it is crucial to take that into account. At European level, what we have done is really to focus on SME needs. There is a very important emphasis at political level in engaging SMEs in the standard development process, trying to clarify, try to help them to find their way in the European standardization system, and facilitating the access to the information and education about European standardization. So we have actually engaged on several projects with one of SDS, which is a small business standard, which is a small business organization that is recognized also by the European standardization regulation, where they bring forward, for instance, the SMEs test, which is they assess whether the standards are fit for SME use, which is a very interesting project that they are developing. Another very interesting exercise that we have done, because we had some feedback from SME users about how they could contribute to the public inquiry, for instance, because it was not that easy for them to find their way in the different national members. So now on the Sentinel website, you just click on the country and you go directly to the public inquiry, which also can help the contribution of the SMEs in the standard development process. So these are the two, I think, nicer examples that I can bring. Standard users, extremely important. National delegation principle is the way in which we work. And so far, I must say, but maybe you have another opinion, this has worked well, because in Europe, and I think the rest of the world, of course, but there are 22 official languages. We have got the standard users, everyone speaks their own language. It is easier for a user also to get access to the information, to get closer to the national standard body that is going to provide all the right ways to get feedback. And for them, it's also easier to communicate that input and that feedback through the national standard bodies. So this is, and having said that, as mentioned about the modernization of the system, we really need to go a step ahead and to assess what could be the possibilities to establish digital processes, innovative processes that can have real-time input from users into the standard development process.
Thank you very much. Philip?
Yes, of course, a lot has already been said by Elena and by Sergio, but maybe if I could take a step back, and when I was preparing myself for this question and I saw it, I would very much really like to plea that, in my view, there's no dichotomy between those who make the standards and those who use it. I mean, at least for IEC, the way we are set up, and it has very much got to do also with the national delegation principle, Elena. First of all, our own statutes acknowledge that what IEC wants to achieve, and that's in its fundamental article about its object, is to really provide stakeholder-led services and solutions. So it's really about including all the relevant stakeholders who produce the standards, and of course offer also the conformity assessment services that we do offer, and that's deeply enshrined in the statute that reflects the DNA of the organization. And at the same time, we have the national committees as the core entities that are the members. Every country creates one national committee for electric technology that is the one and only member to the IC, and it's at the level of the national committee where all the stakeholders have to be included. So these national committees have a responsibility, a heavy responsibility, to make sure that all the voices are heard at the national level. And through that, of course, you get everybody, including the so-called users as well, because we have, it's interesting, we did a stakeholder analysis. When we were starting our work for the strategy, the current strategy, which is relatively recent, we made a really dedicated effort. That task force that was led by our today president, Jo Kops, for a new strategic plan, did a very intensive deep dive into stakeholder analysis. And by and large, we had sort of a presentation, I would say, a structuring of two tiers or two circles, one primary stakeholder, the other one secondary. And the reality is we have standard users in both. We have in the core activities standard users who are doing directly standardization work together with their peers from all sorts of backgrounds. And at the same time, of course, there are, again, organizations like yours or other organizations, for instance, in the consumer space, which are users as well, and which are secondary stakeholders and have different channels to interact with the organization. So I really would like to emphasize, we don't see, here is some cell, some prospective cell that are standards and is detached from reality. I think the whole process is very much bottom up through, not least the national committees and their stakeholders, and then of course combined with mechanisms and channels to involve stakeholders all along the way. And that's also why in our strategy, the third of the three equal strategic pillars, all electric and digital society, sustainability, and inclusion, trust and diversity, that is such an important pillar, the third pillar as well. It complements from a strategic and then of course operational perspective, because the strategy is only worth something if it's operationalized to operational plans. I think it reflects where we're coming from as an IEC, as an organization, in our core DNA. And so that really was my sort of special focus I wanted to give to this question. We are bottom up. We see everybody integrated in the process. Of course, it's never perfect. You always will have maybe one or the other stakeholder group that feels it hasn't had enough say in the process. At some stage, you have to wrap up. You have to, follow deadlines as well. That's why we have our processes that we have in the different standardization technical committees and the conformity assessment systems. But I think by and large, we are inclusive of the user aspect, because without that, the standards will simply not be relevant, and it will be an absolute waste to produce standards that have no practical meaning in the real world.
Thank you very much. Now I want to take you to the other side, to the user side, and how can Ifan foster greater participation and engagement? If you can look at yourself on the other side and see what is the challenges for user participation and the possible solutions. What are the barriers that you think we have for participation? What can organizations propose to remove barriers and improve participation? And what about the role of the NSBs in this context? What do you think needs to be done for us to be more involved and to give more feedback?
The right question. Well, first of all, creating community, raising awareness. What we're doing right now is very important, but all of that needs to be accompanied by concrete tools to allow participation of standard users in the standardization activity. And in the case of Ifan and ISO, we have our MOU, where I'm going to say this in Spanish, mi casa es tu casa, where we host your board meetings every year to make it real your home, your international home of standardization. Apart from that, we have our regular tools for participation in the standardization process. You can be nominated as expert by the NSBs, or there are opportunities for you to be nominated as liaison organizations through other international organizations. But what is it what you can bring to the table in that conversation when we are creating the standard? First, direct feedback on real life experience. Second, you can help a lot in bringing the perspective of how can we facilitate implementation and compliance with the standards, and that can, of course, reduce costs of the implementation of the standard. Then the other one that is very important is prioritization, because the concept of timeliness that we have discussed before is very relative. It depends on what kind of need you're trying to address. So your voice, the voice of standard users, can be really essential in understanding where is it that we have to speed up more and what can wait more time. And the other opportunity here is to do some testing and piloting of the standard. It cannot be a theoretical conversation. It needs to be anchored on the real life experience. So those are the regular tools that can be used and where I'm convinced you can bring a lot of value. Then there are opportunities for you to be hands-on in some of the more emblematic and transformational projects we're working on. I'm referring to SMART, for example. SMART, we keep saying in the past actually that it was about machine-readable standards. It's not about machine-readable standards. It's about use. It's about how do we make your experience, your life easier when navigating through our standards. So a voice of Ifan there is very important. Plus one dedicated project we had at ISO is called Customer Matters, where we try to make a big effort in trying to put customers and users at the center of our conversation by designing some specific tools that we can support our member with, a kind of a toolkit where they can bring whatever makes sense to them to enhance that experience of collaboration with users. And then what we're doing at the level of the Central Secretariat with a QR code that can be scanned and you can provide feedback directly on that standard. There are a lot of challenges and barriers. First is awareness. It's not very clear to everyone how essential, how important is the participation of standard users in the process. Resources constraints, of course, and we know that. But at the end, I think both time and resources depends on the priorities you have. So if you truly believe that this is essential, well, you secure the resources needed for you to have a full participation.
Thank you very much. Nina?
Yes. So, yes, similar to ISO, we do have an MOU with Ifan LC Europe, because of course, I feel that we all understand that there is no competition. Sense fully support the development of international standards whenever that is possible, and we devote European resources whenever there is a specific European need that cannot be, unfortunately, addressed at international level. So we do have our mechanism to exchange with Ifan Europe to get that feedback. And but I agree also with what Sergio has said. So it's like no target, no business. So if we do not have a target to what do we want to achieve, and to be very specific and in what we want to achieve through this kind of cooperations, it's difficult also to be able to make an assessment of the level of success that we have with this kind of instruments. I also would like to emphasize the input given by Sergio, because we are engaged in our digital transformation, and user needs, users' input into these future solutions that are not future, that should be actually present solutions that we need to deliver, like smart or like the online standard development, where there are ongoing pilot projects at European and international level. User needs would be absolutely a must in order to succeed. The level of investment is huge. It could be, I think, a catastrophe that while the tools are being developed and assessed, we are not incorporating the real user needs so that we guarantee a certain level of success, even if then we can improve with time. So these are two specific areas. So let's have some targets for our MOUs. Let's please organize the users' input into the ongoing digital transformation projects in the European standardization system. And I cannot get myself into your shoes, because you said, what do you think? Okay, so, but I believe that our system is too complex. This is something that, this is the feedback that I get many times when I speak with people that maybe is not in the inner circle, if I may say. I mean, here, I think I know many of the faces that are here, and we talk to one another, we talk between ourselves, we more or less understand how we work. Whenever you go to outside this comfort zone, and then self-complacency is not good enough, those that really users of the standards, or potential users, or those that want to use the standards, find the system complex to interact. And there it would be interesting also to make an effort to educate, because this is important, and introduce some simplification in the system without, of course, reducing efficiency and fit for purpose on what we do. But again, this is my personal opinion.
Yeah, I would like to pick up on the complexity that Elena mentioned, and I think Sergio mentioned it as well. I mean, if you look at how accessible are the systems operations we are running, we have issues of, Sergio said it, awareness, issues of resources, and then certainly issues of complexity. I think what everybody understands as a notion, at least at the outset, is probably quality infrastructure. You can go around the world and speak about quality infrastructure, and it speaks to people. So I think the complexity is really a core challenge there. And Elena said it, not sure whom you were quoting, that our system is too complex. I mean, I have been in my role now for 5 years. I haven't found the stroke of genius to make suddenly the IEC processes uncomplex and simple. If I did, you probably will be celebrating 200 years of my birthday in 140 years. And I can tell you that's very unlikely to happen. But I think that's also where I see the prime benefit of having an organization like Ifan, and an important role you can play is to help raise awareness, to point users to the right processes, to the right instances, to engage them with the right stakeholders. For me, Ifan, it reminds me a bit of something we used to call in the Swiss administration when I was a government official, a competence center. You're, in a sense, the competence center for standard users globally, and you know our complex systems, because if I look around the room here, there are many individuals who have actually much more knowledge and experience with our systems than I have. And I think that's very interesting for us to leverage, that you can help the user communities wherever you are, pointing them in the right direction to the right instances. What we, of course, like to focus on as well as an organization is avoiding a sort of an insider syndrome. Because the system is so complex, nobody else understands it. You can then start to each other in acronyms that make sure nobody will ever penetrate the space within you are working. And I think we want to do exactly the contrary. We want to understand what the real needs are, ultimately, of the communities that use the standards. I think the regional and local aspect matters very much there. As you may know, in IC, we have so-called regional centers in all the parts of the world. They are very small, but they're very effective because they know the local and regional needs much better than I could know from Geneva. And we leverage that to the utmost extent. That's also why we're traveling quite a bit, because we want to make sure we understand the different stakeholders' needs. We also want to make sure, of course, we can advocate for what the standards bring to the overall public good, to governments, to regulators. And at the same time, I think we also want to make sure we're not becoming a sort of a group of insiders that just stay on forever and don't let anybody new in. So for us, the younger generation is very important, especially with the technology shifts that we are experiencing. If we don't have digital natives in our work, we will simply become irrelevant because we will be chasing old technologies. And that's also why we spend quite a lot of time and effort on the Young Professionals program. And this is just to say, I think we are trying to be as close as possible to the ground, but indeed what we do is so complex that we need additional actors who do not have maybe a formally recognized governance role, but Ifan as a competence center, if I may call it that way. I'm not sure I'm offending anybody. If I do, I apologize. But for me, Ifan is a competence center of standard users, and you can help very much redirect or direct and connect users with whoever are the right instances, the right people. I think somebody said this morning, standards is about people working together. So I think that's really a great challenge, but it's also a great opportunity for you as an organization for your next 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for all of you. Since we're dealing with standards, we have to be precise and on time. So we have 1 minute for a closing statement for each of you before we go to the questions from everyone. So Philip, anything that I send you like 100 questions, anything that you want to add? Of course, we only got 2-3 of them, but of the 100 that I sent you, anything important that you still want to say before we go to the questions?
Yeah, I don't think we have talked an awful lot about what we call smart standards and conformity assessment, but I would not want to go into technicalities of that. I mentioned that it's a huge challenge institutionally, financially as well, in terms of resources, and we haven't cracked the business model yet with that. What does it mean for the future of the organizations to make us also sustainable financially? But what I wanted to say is, if we look at sort of the interaction, again, from a user's perspective, we have, of course, a number of opportunities of engaging them also today in today's processes, classical processes, I would say, with commenting periods, public commenting at the national level as well, and then also direct exchanges with the participants in our work. But I think we really are taking successful steps now with the online standards development, which is becoming much more inclusive. That's definitely something where I have big hopes that this also is of benefit to the users, because it creates a sort of a level playing field. Everybody can contribute, participate on a more equal footing. So we're leveraging that digital technology already there. And of course, we want to go much beyond that, and SMART is going to be a much more ambitious animal yet. But I think we are progressing step by step, and ultimately, I think if we get it right, we can leverage those digital technologies that are so important for our strategic objective of the all-electric, digital and all-electric and connected society. We can leverage that in our work even more, and that ultimately will make all our work much more accessible and also more targeted, more fit for purpose in a given context.
Thank you very much. Elena?
Yes. Well, I would like to encourage first to thank the Ifan, the users of the standards, but in particular Ifan, for the efforts that we know you make in order to bring feedback, to be there, to be present, to let us improve with those inputs. Second, to tell you that you are important. I think it's something that we need to emphasize. I always say that there is no industry or no standards makers, no standards, no experts, no standards, no users, no standards either. So the role of the standard users is extremely important. And we need to valorize, also be proud of that input that you bring to the system. I think that to be part of the standardization community is a great honor for the society. Sergio has been mentioning safer, better world. I speak about Europe. We also try to make our best efforts to make a safer Europe, environmental friendly, accessible, interoperable, and you are part of that system. So let me encourage you to continue with these endeavors, and let's continue working together to find the best mechanisms in order to do what we do better and better.
Thank you very much. Okay.
I think the implementation of the strategy is our collective responsibility. And in that context, my additional element to mention here in my closest remarks is about collaboration and strategic partnership. I think if we want to really contribute to address global challenges, we need to combine our talents from our respective angles, but with a view to really addressing those challenges. I have a couple of concrete examples. The first one is our collaboration with the IEC. Two of our most emblematic, challenging, and transformational projects we're doing together. It's OSD and SMART. I'm not talking about convergence. I'm not talking about exchange of information. I'm talking about co-creation, pure co-creation of those very important projects. And the second area is sustainability. And we have learned in our participation at the COP that we are not alone. There are many organizations that want to contribute, and we cannot say my way or the highway. We really need to embrace new ways of collaborating with those organizations, co-creating standards, and considering the possibility of dual logo. And so a lot of things that will require a new mindset to achieve strategic partnership and collaboration.
Thank you very much for your view. Now we'll take questions. Yes, Laurent.
Hello everybody, my name is Laurent Berdet, I'm the president of Ifan. And my question is for all of you, what intend you to do to have more active in standardization, which are coming from decision maker, from sales, from marketing, and so on? And do you know our Ifan wing number 4, education and training, and can you help us to promote it?
No, I don't.
He's on the side of us, no, by the way.
No, honestly, I didn't know that. But I think when it comes to the sort of the promotion, I mean, we are in constant exchange with Beret, and we're happy to see how we can mutually, support each other. Of course, I think there's an absolute openness for that. The first question, sorry, was
more people.
Take more on the boards.
Yeah.
From marketing, decision maker, and so on.
Well, of course, we are in the middle of trying to find our way towards a new business model, and I can tell you, we have, of course, dedicated governing bodies, and then we have special task forces now that we have set up in the SMART process to make sure that these specialists, in a sense, are involved. We have been working with a number of countries on very interesting pilots for digital standards, for SMART, and there, of course, the commercial aspects play a very important role. So I think that is recognized. We have on the IEC side the Business Advisory Committee, which is particularly also dealing with commercial aspects. And so there, I can guarantee you our members will make sure that their commercial interests are not forgotten. So I'm not so concerned that we would lack that side of the participation.
I just want to add, related to your question, last week in Cartagena, some criticism that I heard about Ifan is that you're doing so many things, but we don't know anything about it. So basically, we take a lot of information from ISO, IC, and Sentinel, distribute it and tell everyone, the whole world, about the users, but you know very little about it. So we take it upon us to give you more feedback.
Can I no. Oh, okay. So the first question, I mentioned the high-level forum on European standardization, and that is precisely an attempt to engage decision makers in the standard development process. So This is an initiative that came partially from the European standards organizations, because we were of the sense that there was a need to incentivize the work within companies of the standardization activities. One of the things that I say sometimes when I speak is that in a company, to become a manager, you need to have gone through the standardization department prior to get to a manager position. I don't know if companies listen to me, but I think this is some of the examples that we are trying to promote also in putting the standardization at C-level and engage decision makers in the standard development process. And I have some anecdotes, but I will not go back to that. So very important input, and very important because standardization is strategic. It's not just a technical work that is done in a corner by a group of very nice experts in a company. Regarding education about standardization, well, here we have got this, you know, in Europe, subsidiarity. Education is it's actually delegated to, or is not delegated, it's part of the competence of the member states. So there is not, as such, a European program. We have been trying to have some approach to European standardization in full connection in coordination with the members of CEN and CENELEC. And actually, we are now engaged in a Horizon Europe project. So it's a project that is co-funded, that is EDU for standards. And there we are trying really to develop a module of European standardization that can then be spread amongst all those that could be interested. So two very good points, a very valid input. We are working on that and trying to engage and to increase awareness and education and C-level in the standardization understanding.
Very quickly, communication is of the essence. You are in good hands with that. That's the good news. As I mentioned at the beginning, and one of our strategic priorities is to demonstrate the value of standards. And on that regard, I think those success stories that can be case studied and can be promoted are essential. And we can do that together. So afterwards, we engage with policymakers, with business leaders, but with the right stories, being able to demonstrate what we're saying. It's not enough to say standards are important to you. We need to come up with something that demonstrates that assessment. And in terms of education, we have created a toolkit for our members to support our members in their journey in engaging with education and universities. We also have created a network with very important universities that have standardization as part of their priorities. And it's very important to exchange information about curricula. For example, we don't reinvent the wheel. If it is a master program in standardization, even PhD, some universities in China have PhD degree on standardization. And because, well, we see the future there. Many of the experts of the future will come from there.
Thank you. Yes, David.
Yeah, so,
Could you microphone? You can introduce yourself.
So it's David CPU from Get More Brain. So the common themes that I was hearing, this is my first meeting with Ifan, so pleasure to everybody. And thank you again for your presentation. So one thing that, you know, the common theme is around change and transformation and how do we adapt. And you as leaders, how have you been evolving as you inside your organizations in your roles as your organizations are evolving? Which characteristics, what do you see in yourself?
Good question. Very good question. Excellent one. And they all did.
Maybe I can start because I started in February 2020. So you know what happened the next month. So of course that has been in itself a very transformational experience to start as a Secretary General under COVID conditions. And I think there has been clear benefits. I mean, we talked about our traveling circus that we do, and this is not to sort of make this a joke, because I think it is very important. There are many things we cannot do over a Zoom call. and that's why we are interacting a lot face to face. But certainly, in a sense, the evolution or more the learning curve for me was to be very close to how the organization operates and to be able to adjust processes, structure, people to some degree as well, to look after those needs that were emerging through COVID. And then when COVID was officially declared over, of course, to make sure we find a new sort of middle ground, because I think there is never an absolute perfect approach to how you manage, how you interact with stakeholders. But overall, I'm quite convinced, and I used to be, maybe a little bit biased because I used to be a telecom regulator, so I'm very familiar with digital technologies and the digital communication means. I think it has made us a more inclusive organization, and it has brought us more closely also to the needs. And I think that's where we come back to Ifan as well. I mean, as to how I personally have evolved, I would leave that judgment to my president, to my board, to my peers. So maybe Sergio, you can say how I have evolved over the last 5 years.
Sergio.
It's been a pleasure. That's what I can say. It is a very interesting question. In a personal level, I think the biggest change has been precisely regarding embracing change. Because when you deal with an organization of this level of complexity, you try to improve things to make it work better and better. But there is a point where improving things is not good enough, and you need to rethink out of the box thinking to make the organization or to maintain the relevance of the organization. And if you look at the projects that we are currently working on, they are very, very exciting. Scary in a way, but very, very exciting, because we are transforming the way we create our standards, transforming the way we offer our standards to the community. We're transforming the way we capture needs. So it's truly transformational and very, very exciting, but I wouldn't give it for granted. It does require a change in the mindset to embrace that change, and second, a very strong program on change management. It doesn't happen overnight, especially, again, it's an organization of this level of complexity, we cannot improvise. We need to manage this change.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So, okay, I will not elaborate on change management because that was my first point. But from a personal perspective, I think that the evolution has been more in the strengthening collaboration and cooperation. We come from very niche activities in standardization, and what I have seen in the evolution of the management or as a leader of the organization is the importance of creating partnerships, cooperations, learning from others, learning to work together and make the best of all the knowledge that we have in the system, and also to spread that within the community that we have. And now I will say something that maybe is a little bit provocative, but I believe that we have been very conservative in the approach of addressing standardization, and I spoke about modernization of the system. I think that it's very important to believe in what we do and believe in the fact of we need to do this together with all the community and the ecosystem that we have to work with. And in that sense, I think it's a pleasure to work with Philippe and with Sergio. And I agree with Barrett that if we look back and think about being together, the three of us speaking, and we have regular exchanges, it wouldn't have happened. So extremely important change management, but also to understand that cooperation and collaboration is a must to progress.
Thank you very much. Excellent question, David. If I might say, in my opinion, I think it's a matter of your personality. You all are very adaptive to the changes, and although standardization is a very rigid process. I think you've done a lot in the past few years, and it's fantastic. And we're very lucky to have you as leaders of the standardization world. More questions? Here. Yes, Ben.
Good morning, everyone. Daniel Mansfield from BSI. So, as a standards, I'm a standards body person in the room, and noting what you said, Philippe, about people being there for, I've been at BSI for a very, very long time. So I hope I'm not standing in the way of future generations who are coming through. Just thinking about that, actually, and you mentioned quality infrastructure, and in Olivier's opening remarks as well, he mentioned that standards don't operate by themselves, and they're part of an ecosystem. We need to think of systems approach. I'm doing a lot of work in the UK at the moment about quality infrastructure. And once I start engaging with other organisations, so accreditation and metrology, we talk about the standards terminology. There's a whole other word soup out there with these other systems. And I just wonder if you have any reflections on how the language we use to describe ourselves as standardizers and as the system that we are part of just gets in the way of effective participation in standards and use of standards, because it's just, you know, is the language we use to describe ourselves fit for the future, and what can we do about it?
Well, I think we can all agree that you are right on spot. We need to transform the way we communicate with the external world. Sometimes when we hear ourselves talking, it looks like a dialect with the acronyms and those very sophisticated, concepts. Instead of machine readable, as I said before, it's about human readable, human understandable language that we need to use if we really want to communicate with the external world and to be understood. For me, the real challenge is not to sound like an expert and knowledgeable person. The real challenge is to make sense to everyone else with what we do. So yes, absolutely.
Yes, I think also, Daniel, that this has to do with the message I said about complexity. I also think that here to have an adaptive language is extremely important. We tend to use exactly the same terminology no matter with whom we speak. So it doesn't really, I mean, maybe it's not always like that, but to take into account our target audience is extremely important. And I think that we are on the process to learn that. There is some way to go, but it's not the same to speak to a CEO that to speak to a young professional or to a student. And we really need to have this adaptive language and message in order to engage more users in the system. And then the quality infrastructure. Well, I can tell you that now in Europe we have started this informal network, the European Quality Infrastructure Network, which used to exist in the past, and because of the different priorities in the organizations were somehow disconnected. So there is hope. I say that I am optimistic by default, and we are working together in order to identify what is the message that we would like to pass as a quality infrastructure group, coordinating with the International Quality Infrastructure Network to make sure that we can be clearer in the message that we want to pass, and that we can get more feedback and more users and makers in the standard development process. So very good point, and just we're working on it.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, if I try to separate maybe on the one hand the content work or the substance work, and then the aspect of external communication per se, it's very clear. We have teams, we have experts, we have also a lot of input from members. We can also learn from members how they are communicating, how they make things more understandable. But I have a lot of respect for the substance, and so I mean, we have to be also realistic. We can't just turn upside down terminology. Established and well working terminology frameworks. I remember, I can tell you from experience within the IEC, when we were reallocating resources in terms of secretarial support for the terminology technical committee, I got quite a lot of pushback because there were people who thought that this could not be touched. It had to be the same as it was. And we thought we could do this in a more efficient way and reallocate resources possibly to other things. So it is a very touchy subject. And I'm very respectful of the expert work and just turning everything upside down for that sake, I think is not going to work. But of course, it's a constant attempt at optimizing the understandability. At the same time, as I've said, the digital tools, OSP Smart, would hopefully also allow us to focus much more on content, core content substance of standard content than just the terminology around it and spend a lot of time with that. So this is all an ongoing process. We'll probably never have a perfect solution or a perfect equilibrium. But I think, again, look, taking from Vered, what she said, that it would not have been thinkable to have this sort of conversation with the three organizations here. I think it's hopefully a testament to that we are on that path, knowing that things will never be perfect. And then if you have been an expert in the field, I personally have a legal background, you're always, of course, you have a sort of a natural tendency to go back into the legalese and be stuck in those trenches. And that's why you need people who can help you out of that and communicate in a more understandable way.
Thank you very much. Since we have to constrain of time, and we have Vivian, it is an opportunity for me to introduce our new board member from China, with the National Users Group from China. She's keeping up the time, and I know the time is up. So I really want to thank you all for coming here and for great insights. And thank you so much. Wait, stay here in your seat 1 second. I know we have more questions, so if anyone has anything, so we have a coffee break later.